Hello everyone, welcome to Claret and Booze. My name's Nick, this is my daily ramble. Welcome, and welcome to all the new subscribers that joined us over the weekend as well. Thanks for jumping on board. And look, if you are new to the channel or you're a long time watcher, one click, don't cost you anything. Jump aboard, it does help us. Don't forget, drop a like on the video as well. That's the one thing you can do that really helps us with the YouTube algorithm. Oh, I know that annoys you all, but I've got to say it. If I don't say it, you don't do it. So, quite a lot to be going through today. We've got the Lucas Paqueta update. We've got rumours around Nicholas Fullkrug and his injury being far more severe than was first indicated. We've got some more developments on the Tim Steiten thing and you know, some stories that have been circulating, some information that I've got as well. I don't know what to believe, but I'm going to talk to you about that and I'm going to give you my opinion on it as well. Might surprise you. And we're going to talk about the fallout again. I'm going to start with the Ipswich game as well, because look, as you know, I was very, very giddy following that game. I still am. Like, I had every right to feel elated after watching West Ham beat Ipswich 4-1 in a very, very attacking performance. You know, we deserved to win it. It was I think we had an XG of 3.5 versus they didn't even have one XG. So even statistically, we was good value for that money. We created 13 chances on goal, you know. So absolutely, it was a good, fun, attacking game. But a lot of people have since then not sucked the jam out me donut, but kind of, because I wanted to ignore everything. You know me. If anyone's going to be cynical after a win, you've seen it plenty of times before. It's going to be me. It's going to be, yeah, we won, but I didn't want to feel like that this time. I didn't. I'm starting to feel so down on West Ham over the past few weeks. I just wanted to grab this win and fucking hold it and cuddle it. And that's what I've done. But you watch more and more content, you listen to more and more people, you open your eyes a little bit, and you do start to see that the cracks that were there. The big one, I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'll watch the Analytics United with Ed Sheeran and Callum Goodall. And it's not Ed Sheeran, is it? What's his name? I can't think of his name. You know what I mean. But they... Look, typically what they can do sometimes after games, I think, is they can blow smoke up the club's arse undeservedly sometimes, but they didn't on this occasion. They're very good. They're very good analysts, they are. But they was very disappointed with the way that we approached that game in large portions of it. And what I took from their analysis was that we weren't exposed by Ipswich. So effectively what we did was we pressed with five players, so five forward players. You had Kudus, Bowen and Antonio, who we know pressed. They pressed the back line. Leif Davis made his way up the pitch, so he's their left back. He made his way into space. You had Soucek and Paqueta pressing Morsey and Phillips. So we had five players pressing more or less against five players. What that meant was, and the other thing that happened was, Clark was dragging Wan-Bissaka inside. For some reason, he must have been man-marking him. He must have been told to. He was permanently dragging Wan-Bissaka inside off of the right back berth, which meant Leif Davis had the freedom of the London Stadium. If only Ipswich could have found him. So basically, that guy, who is their biggest creative force, was sat in 20 yards of space with no one around him for virtually 20 minutes, 30 minutes in that first half. All Ipswich had to do was bypass our press. That's all they had to do, but they refused to do it. They just kept on trying to play through it, playing into a brick wall. All they had to do at any time was clip the ball over the top. The example they gave was like Aston Villa did to Luca Dean when they played us. Just bypassed our press, exposed us completely. We was gone, you know. So if they'd have done that at any point, it could have been a very, very different story. So that's on McKenna for not identifying what could have been a gift. Like Calvin Phillips gave us two gifts, I think, you know, one with the first goal and then the third goal where he just kind of showed Bowen inside onto his left foot. I mean, did you see the way Bowen relaxed once he looked up and he saw it was Phillips that he was up against? Speaks volumes. But the way that we attacked, we could have been stung for it. But there's two ways that you can look at that, in my opinion. That's all true. Was Lopetegui aware of the risks? Because for me, this was a massive must-win game. We had to go out. We had to attack. For me, I think it was a high-risk, high-reward tactic. I would imagine and I would hope that Lopetegui would be fully aware of what could happen. But maybe he studied Ipswich and he knows that they won't do that. They won't bypass a press. They will try and play through you. Maybe that's what he did, and maybe he got into his players and said, look, we're going to play this high-risk game. We're going to. It's going to yield a lot of chances because of our overloads. You're going to get a lot of chances to score goals. It's down to you to be clinical. It's down to you to press and force the errors. And we're going to trust in our defensive players to cope with the threat that comes the other way. That's what I'm pinning my hopes to. But there is no doubt that playing that way, now I've seen it on paper, even though I came out and said, we've got to play that way, that exact way against Spurs. No, I want to see pressing, but not like that. You can't do that. That would be suicidal, because the minute anyone more tactically astute or anyone with more ability that we come up against, they'll see those gaps. They'll see that player. It's like having, Madison just over there wide open in space with no one around him. They're going to hit him every 2 minutes and then they're gone. They're gone. And then you're in a 5-on-5 or a 4-on-4, whatever it is, attackers versus defence. It ain't going to end well. So I do think that he's got to come up with something a little bit different there. Guido Rodriguez isn't the answer, especially in that sort of scenario where there's a chance he's going to be overrun. He hasn't got the legs. He can't do it. Maybe even Alvarez in that situation. You're asking a lot of your defensive players when you're coming up against a good attacking team. So I'm all for ballsy football, but not suicidal. So I think he may have to find a balance, and I'm sure that he will. I'm sure that he won't look at Tottenham in the same way that he looked at Ipswich. So I'm going to be hopeful. I'm going to hope and pray that it all goes well when all Tottenham's chances fall to Timo Werner, because he's shit and he can't hit a barn door. I'm still going to say we can beat them. I am. But what I will say is all the stuff that I've watched since the game has sucked the jam out me donut a little bit. A little bit. I really wanted to sort of grab it and think, yeah, brilliant, masterclass. He went for it, which is what we always want as West Ham fans. So I'm not going to criticise him for it. He went for it. He gambled. It paid off. We battered him at the end of it. And with regards to McKenna coming out on the match of the day, where we looked the bollocks on match of the day, didn't we? He came out and basically said, yeah, it's difficult to play against them when they're playing long ball to Souček and Antonio. We didn't play long ball, mate. We didn't. We didn't in that game. There was some great passing moves, and thank God they corrected him as well. They corrected him and gave examples of the fact that we weren't playing long ball. It was a good performance. But yeah, so I just wanted to touch on that. Right, moving onwards to Lucas Paqueta. It's been released that he's caught here and he's going to be in March. There's been a few more charges that have been levied against him, apparently. One of the charges I really don't get, they're having a go at him 12 months ago, apparently, when the charges were first put against him. He handed over his phone. He gave him his phone. He had his phone for weeks. He went out and got another phone. Well, what's happened is the investigation's developed, and then they've said, oh, we want that phone back again. He's gone, well, I ain't got it. You've had it 2 months. I've fucking got a new one. It's basically what he said. What's wrong with that? You would do, wouldn't you? A footballer ain't going to be waiting for because he can't afford a new phone. He'll hand over his phone, take his SIM card, go and get a new one. That phone's gone. He's probably got loads of friends or whatever. It's gone. The phone's gone. So they've asked for it back. Well, that's their own fucking fault. How can he get in trouble for that? Because they didn't conduct their investigations properly when they had that device. So no, sorry, people, I'm getting really sick. I know I'm biased towards Paqueta. I know I love him. There is a serious man crush going on. He's exactly the type of player that I love. He is. And I like his character as well. And he's a very handsome man. But I don't love him for that reason, because I'm not that kind of girl. But I'm going to be hopeful that I think he's going to get off. I'm going to go the opposite way of everyone else. I don't think he's going to get a ban. I don't think he is. I think if he was going to get a ban, this would have been pushed through by now. We've just seen the Premier League lose a court case to Man City. I mean, and they had Man City banged to fucking rights. Banged to rights. I know it wasn't really for the 115. It's not for that. It was for something else. It was more against their... it's all connected, because it's how they've funded this project. So it was all, can't think what they call it now. It's their dodgy sponsors. So they basically sponsor their own club and throw money into it that way. But then, as has been said, if you start going down that route, then you've got to look at clubs that owners put interest-free loans into their club, because that's the same thing. Arsenal Arsenal do that as well. So I'm pretty sure that's kind of what Man City did throw back at them. And as it turns out, the Premier League have lost that battle. They don't know what they're fucking doing. I don't like the fact that the way that Lucas Paqueta's career will be decided doesn't rely on absolute proof. They don't need it. It's just going to go to a panel of people that are gonna make a judgment like a fucking boxing fight. You know what I mean? Surely something as important as this, with that much money involved, where West Ham are going to get hammered for we've lost 85 million basically, because that's what he was worth before all this started, and Lucas Paqueta is losing his career. It can't come down to the opinions of a few people. It can't. I'm going to remain confident that I think Lucas Paqueta will get off with this without a ban and just a fine. That's what I think will happen. Or he'll get cleared and we'll counter-sue him. We'll counter-sue the FA. That's what we'll do. We'll make loads of money. Loads. The other one, Tim Steiten. We've all heard the news and the rumours that have been coming out. Well, the latest one that I've seen, and I ain't going to take too much from this, it's where Tim Steiten's come out and... he hasn't come out, sorry. Apparently, Tim Steiten's angry. They're reporting that Tim Steiten's angry at the Duran deal collapsing. Well, Tim Steiten did play his part in that. I reported ages ago. As you know, I was involved in this. I knew the intermediary. That's how because I released that story way before anyone else. I knew the intermediary, and Tim Steiten was kind of also part of the reason why we didn't get that player done. I know people are going to dismiss it and say, oh, no, we Aston Villa didn't need the money. They did need to sell players. They had to sell players. That's why they sold... they sold two. They sold the Brazilian Luiz and they sold Diaby. They had to sell players at the time, and he was a player that was surplus to requirements. They used those players. So they would rather have got the money in for Duran. They weren't using him. And we could have got him for 30 million, 35 million at the start of the window, but then Tim did piss off and start swanning around South America. He did. He missed his window of opportunity. By the time he came back, they'd made sales. They weren't desperate for money, but in terms of PSR, they had to tick some boxes. They had to get some money in. They're a rich club, Aston Villa, but it's a constraint. They have to play within the rules. So that was our window of opportunity to get him for what would have been an absolute bargain price. So they drove the price up when they came back, and this is where Sullivan gets involved, and he starts having a tantrum and goes, "No, I'm not doing it. I'll only pay this much." And that's where Tim's going back and forth. He's trying to get Aston Villa back down to a price that Sullivan will sign off on. We start offering fucking Lewis Alford as a part exchange deal to sweeten the deal. We start trying to do everything. And it did all come down to the fact that Sullivan wouldn't cough up an extra 5 million. That's exactly what happened. All of these counter stories that are coming out now, and there'll be more. The fact that we offered 45 million, but Aston Villa wanted 60. They're rubbish. They're being peddled from the club because of the egg that they've got all over their face on this deal. Counter stories coming out all the way through. They're embarrassed, and so they should be. But Tim has played his part in this as well as Sullivan has. So has Tim, and you know I'm a big advocate of Tim Steiten. I am. And also, talking about having all your eggs in one basket as well. How can there not have been a suitable backup for Duran? Because Füllkrug ain't that. I said this before. I said, how can you go from Duran to Füllkrug? They're completely different strikers. Completely different. They're not the same. How can there not have been a couple of players of a similar profile that we had lined up? That's annoying. That should have been a priority position, even though it looked like Duran. You know, maybe Tim just thought it was a done deal so he could switch his focus elsewhere. You could see the player thought it was a done deal. He was doing crossed irons on the crossed hammers on a social media stream. It was all but done. But we just wouldn't cough up the additional money that they wanted. It's as simple as that. We fucked up. It's gone. He's just signed a contract. The player's gone. There's no point talking about it anymore. But I do find it a bit rich that Tim's covering his arse. I think they're all doing that. I think everyone's covering their arses here. What bothers me about this, though, is the stories that have come out prior in the previous weeks, and I've spoken about it already, where Sullivan's come out claiming Somerville, and you got, as we know, Lopetegui, Kilman. You know, that's his player. I'm assuming Rodriguez as well because he's not getting dropped. He was a freebie. So it is a bit odd that we've got a director of football in place. It doesn't really seem like he's a director of football because a director of football should be completely controlling the recruitment process. Should be. He's not. And even if he made that mistake with Duran at the start, and he did missed the ball, so to speak. He dropped the ball, sorry. We talk about cutting your nose off to spite your face, Sullivan. You're an idiot, aren't you? We should have gone out and paid the 40 million. We should have. Because 40 million on Duran, an extra 10 million, when you consider what we've just spent on Nicholas Fullkrug, is madness. And I'm going to go on to talk about Nicholas Fullkrug next. So I don't know this is true, by the way. There is a very well-respected ITK on KUMB that I'm not part of. I've had the story. I don't like KUMB. Don't like them. They don't like me either. But he's very good. He gets a lot right. And I've had a story sent to me by someone from him. And a lot of other people have taken this narrative as well. And that's that the Nicholas Fullkrug injury has always been worse than has been disclosed by the club. Always. But they've been looking... It was always going to need an operation. But they've been looking at ways of getting around it and rehabilitating him to get him through. It looks like he might need that operation. If he has the operation, he's going to be gone until the end of January at the earliest. He'll be 32 by the time he comes back. And that is not a good injury. An Achilles injury, it's not. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see if he does come back. I mean, the rumour from the club is that he's going to be available for Spurs after the international break, but we shall have to wait and see. It's obviously more severe than what they said. It's strange because we've been watching him, we've been seeing him in training videos, haven't we? So it is odd, unless they haven't been... what's the word? They haven't been deceitful. Maybe he's just aggravated it. Maybe it's just got worse through the fact that he's been training. They haven't rehabilitated him properly. I don't know. But it's not bad luck. Whenever you sign a striker, especially one of that age profile, you should take into consideration their injury record. If you pull up their injury records on transfermarket.com and you put Nicholas Fullkrug's injury record alongside Andy Carroll's injury record, there ain't a massive difference. Now, Nicholas Fullkrug was pretty much injury-free. Not injury-free, he's had a few over the last 2 years or 3 years. But that's when he's been playing for clubs where he's been used more or less as a super sub. He ain't been playing full games. He's been used off the bench. When he was playing for Dortmund, he's been used off the bench. Prior to that, fucking hell, this geezer's had every body part breakdown. There's a lot in there. What I'm saying is, we've paid a ridiculous amount of money on a long contract, big salary, for a 31, soon-to-be 32-year-old with not a nice injury record. Not a nice at all. So you can turn around and you can say, oh, it's bad luck. You know, it's not. When you buy a player who's injury-prone and they get injured, I refuse to accept it's bad luck. It's not. It's almost nailed on. It's lucky if they don't get injured. We're lucky that Antonio hasn't got injured over the past few years. We're lucky that he's found a way of managing his hamstrings, you know, because they was popping a couple of times a year, weren't they? So, yeah, for me, ridiculous business. I don't know how we had Duran as a target but didn't have a B target. Well, if we can't get Duran, we'll get him in the same profile to do what we've done, which is basically what they've ended up doing. Bear in mind, we've got an analysis team now. You've got Maximilian Hahn, you've got his brother, you've got everyone else. They're supposed to have this wide, vast knowledge of the worldwide market. And the best that they could come up with was this bloke that used to play up front for a team that they both worked for before. Talk about jobs for mates. I'm not happy with the Fullkrug signing. That is a blotch on Tim's copybook as far as I'm concerned. I'm not saying that Fullkrug is going to fail. I'm not. But that was always a stupid fucking signing. It really was. In my opinion, it was. Yeah, bizarre. I do think there was an element of us using Füllkrug to try and scare Aston Villa into letting us have Duran, and then Aston Villa probably went, look, stop dicking around, just go, we're going to keep him. And we're like, oh, we're down the line with Füllkrug now, should we just sign him? And we signed him. I think that's probably what happened. Well, I'd like to think, because I don't think there was much strategy in that at all. So, yeah, look, that's a lot. That's a lot in that to digest. Let me know what your thoughts are. And I will speak to you all soon. Don't forget, drop a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already. Gavin, you heads.